Hi everyone. The Alpha 4 test hasn't ended yet, but I think it will soon, and it's time for us to discuss it. A lot of interesting things have happened during these 3 months. I'd like to recap the test, talk about some downsides, improvements, overall impressions, and dive into some game areas in more details. It would be great if you could spare the next 10 minutes with me. I also invite you to share your thoughts in the comment section. Initially, the Alpha 4 test was planned for a month. However, after the start, players encountered highly unstable servers, especially during prime hours. I suppose that developers didn't see a way to fix it quickly, so they decided to extend the test from 1 month to 3 months. The decision was quite welcome, I think, for many players. Since August is a popular vacation month, people often want to spend time outside. So the opportunity to test and play the game for extra time in September and October was warmly received by the community. Another significant downside was the issue of item duplication. For clarity, this refers to a set of bugs that allowed players to duplicate items, making it easier to accumulate gold, enhance crafting opportunities, and generally become more powerful than those who didn't exploit these bugs. As a consequence, we experienced several server wipes while developers worked to identify and fix all possible duplication methods. While there were other minor issues, I believe the server instability and item duplication were the primary source of players' frustration. The final reason for the players' base disappointment is the developers' sudden disappearance after the last wipe. Since September 24, we haven't heard anything from them, which is unusual. During Alpha 3 and 4, they communicated at least once every week or two. It's not that they must appear regularly or say something after every wipe, but players' expectations for news were reasonable. Before the wipe, the developers mentioned preparing an endgame so-called step, where players could test missing endgame content, promising to deliver it shortly after. However, players didn't receive this content. While it's understandable that things don't go always as planned, it's better to communicate struggles openly. The complete silence has led to speculations, early access postponement, game cancellation, and concerns about refunds. Some people have even checked Corepunk's LinkedIn page to verify if the company still exists. We can dispel these speculations simply by leaving a brief message stating we are working on this, this and this, yet we set expectations, but not everything went as planned. Thank you for your support, we love you all. It's not that difficult, I think, and it's especially important during an active test phase and the period before release, when you are building your core audience, the first people who will be at the forefront to share your joys and sorrows. Today is October 29, I'm finalizing the script and expect to release the video today. The developers released a patch yesterday that removed the fog from the step area. This area usually deals damage in zones not meant to be accessible to players yet. However, you still can't roam there freely as the game continues to damage players. Oddly, I haven't seen any message or patch notes about this change. This lack of communication seemed particularly strange, especially considering that, according to the developers, the game's early access is set to begin on November 24th, less than a month away. Regarding overall expectations, not just for this wipe, I've been following the game for a long time and have noticed a concerning pattern with developers. They repeatedly set expectations without meeting them. They've postponed the alpha dates, the wipe date, and the release of in-game content. I want to emphasize that it's okay not to make promises if you're unsure you can keep them. If you want to generate hype before an event, you can simply share news without setting specific expectations. Otherwise, you'll face disappointment when you inevitably let players down. It's crucial to mention one significant factor that many people might overlook. The developers of this game are from Ukraine, which is, as we all know, is currently at war. These developers can't sleep well, often lack electricity, and face the constant threat of bombs flying overhead. They are struggling in conditions that no one in the world should experience in 2024. We must keep this in mind when considering their work and communication. I'd also like to highlight some positive aspects of the game and the developers' efforts during the alpha. Currently, you rarely encounter any server stability or item duplication issues. They've improved combat animations as well. Personally, I didn't see any problems with the previous animations, but making hero behavior more lively and responsive is always appreciated. During the alpha, we also received improvements to the synthesis machine, giving us more insights into the developer's vision for endgame equipment and modification. I'm planning to release a video about the synthesis machine, so make sure to follow the channel so you don't miss it. We've also seen improvements in the quest system, particularly in rewards and quest order, making leveling more coherent and consistent. Now let's delve into specific aspects of the game. First, let's discuss gathering and its resources. At times, it seemed that there weren't enough resources spots available. You might think this was due to peak playing hours, but I encountered difficulties even during early morning hours. This issue was more pronounced during the early and mid-wipe periods. The scarcity of iron ore was particularly noticeable. Currently, I believe it's the most valuable resource due to its high demand in implant crafting. As we all know, implants are crucial for enhancing hero power. Consequently, everyone crafts implants, and everyone needs iron ore. The first issue here is that a mining spot can transform into a crystal seam, metal mine, or metal vein. If the spot becomes a mine, once gathered, it regenerates as a seam or vein. However, players are reluctant to gather from these spots because their resources are less valuable compared to those from mines. This leads to a situation where we might eventually have no ore deposits on the map at all. All ore deposits are gathered and no new ones appear because no one wants to collect other types of mining resources. The second issue is that even when you find an ore deposit, there seems to be a higher chance of receiving meteoric ore than iron ore. As a rough estimate, out of 100 ore spots, you might receive 65 meteoric and only 35 iron ore, which is clearly unbalanced. Yeah, maybe I'm overthinking it and it was just bad luck for me, but this has been my experience throughout 4 wipes. To address this, I suggest either increasing the value of other resource types or decreasing the overwhelming influence of mining resources on crafting. Alternatively, the developers could increase the spawn chance of ore deposits compared to seam and vein deposits. Personally, I think many players would like to see an auction house in the game. Yes, we are aware of the RMT problem. The developers share their thoughts on this about a year ago. They understand that we are eagerly awaiting an auction system, but they are working on ways to minimize RMT, which is certainly welcome. However, I don't currently see any foolproof method to avoid it entirely. Every MMORPG has RMT, it's just the nature of the beast. For an early access game, a basic trade system might be sufficient, but to be competitive in the MMORPG market, it needs an auction house. I'd personally like to be able to trade items at any time of the day, not just when the person with the desired items happens to be online. Now let's discuss butchering. The issue here is even more complex than with iron ore. While you can simply gather from an iron ore deposit, butchering requires defeating the target first before collecting resources. This makes it more time consuming. The problem involves the Exafoid process item, a valuable component in crafting implants. The issue is twofold. First, you can only obtain it from one type of mob, turtles. Second, turtles have only a few spawn spots on the map. This forces all players seeking Exavoid to converge on specific areas, creating intense competition for this desired item. As a result, farming Exavoid process is challenging for everyone due to the fierce competition for turtles. To be fair, there is a chance to find a turtle anywhere in the forest, but it's so slim that it's hardly worth mentioning. The suggestions mirror those for ore, either decrease the significance of Exavoid process or increase the value of other butchering resources. Alternatively, provide more turtle spawn spots. The absence of tier 3 nodes is also noticeable. I believe it's worth adding them at least in zones with level 20 maps. While I know the developers would like to introduce tier 3 nodes in the steppes, I think there is enough space for them on the default map. While criticism is easy, it's equally important to give credits where it's due. Let's highlight some recent improvements. In my previous alpha impression video, I pointed out how difficult it was to locate items required for quests. Now we can check an NPC communication history. Since NPCs often provide hints about where to find required items, this feature makes it easier to review details we might have missed during our first encounter. The awkward hardcore quest, which players previously received at the start of the game, has been removed and placed later in the gameplay. Previously, Hank's first quest required us to defeat dreads. Now we have an initial quest that we can actually complete when we received it, and we even get an implant to empower our hero. While the situation with turtles regarding butchering remains problematic, the situation with wolves has improved significantly. Previously, farming wolves alone at an equal level was nearly impossible, as they typically traveled in groups of 3-4, with even a single wolf being formidable. You had to team up with other players to farm them. However, since resources from an animal can only be gathered once, this approach was highly inefficient for the entire group. After the latest update, the maximum number of wolves south of Goldenfield has decreased to 2. Now there is a good chance of encountering a single wolf, allowing for comfortable farming and resource gathering. To the west you can still find packs of 3-4 wolves, but there are more opportunities to encounter just 1 or 2 after the update. This change has made butchering resources more accessible, and I am quite pleased with it. Regarding mining, it was great to see level 15 mobs in one of the most profitable areas. Before the update, low-level players could farm in zones intended for mid to late game players without any difficulty, as there were no mobs. I think this wasn't as fair as it should have been. As a result, we are likely to see increased competition for mining in other areas. However, the map is large, so I believe everyone will find opportunities to farm, except immediately after a wipe or release. That's pretty much all I'd like to highlight about Alpha 4. I had enough time to test the game, gather information for my future videos, and simply enjoy it. Regarding the future, the developers have stated they plan to release the early access version of the game by the end of November. Personally, I don't want to set expectations for myself, and I encourage you to do the same. If they release it on time, wonderful. If we have to wait, that's totally okay. As we all know, it's better to wait and receive something presentable than to receive it on time and end up disappointed. Thank you for your time. See you.